want to show you this other mode on the push that is known as the melodic step sequencer, right? So it's going to work similarly to the way that drum racks were working, in that it's going to walk through this sequence and we determine where we put notes, right? So to do this, there's this magical button over here called the layout button. So when I hit layout, oh snap, we do not see that mode anymore. And you're looking at this, you're like, what do we do with this, right? Is this, I don't even know, right? So what this is going to break down to is now the root note of our scale is going to be this bottom note, and all of these notes running up are going to be different note pitches in that scale, right? So if we were in C major like before, it'd be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. This top row is very important up here. This is going to control that loop length. So remember how on the drum rack over in the bottom right corner, that was controlling the loop length? This top row in melodic step sequencing mode is going to control the loop length. So I'm going to solo up. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to solo up this track here so we could just listen to this. So again, notice on the chord stab track that there are no clips on this track. So again, just like I did with the drum rack, I'm going to press and hold, and we can see that I've created a 2-bar clip here. So we see the step sequencer running. We have 4 pads here. Again, every note, every pad is still equivalent to a value of 1/16, right? So basically, each pad up here in this mode is equal to half a bar, right? So it's like, there's the finish of bar 1, here's bar 2. Bar 1, we turn on the metronome. Pretty sweet, right? We're making metronome music. So if we want, now I can just start plugging notes down into the pattern down here. So I could just enter a note. This would be entered. Let's see if we can find it on the strip there, on that pattern. So let's start at the beginning here, right? And I just punch it in. It's unsolo. Right? That's a little bit too low for me, so I want to go an octave higher. So I'm going to press this pad again. To remove it, I'm going to hit the octave up button here. Doop. And now, enter that note. I'm going to adjust my piano roll here so you can see that. Right? Now, the melodic step sequencer can be a little bit tricky because we can only view, right, a half of a bar at a time. So when I first started using the melodic step sequencer, it was like I'd plug a note in, and then I was like, wait, what part of the bar am I in, and how do I enter notes, right? Because it can get very confusing. If you're like, oh, wait, how come it didn't put it over there? Because we now have the ability to focus the pad grid on a certain part of the phrase, right? So we remember each of these is equal to a half a bar, right? With our note values being 1/16 note. So if I wanted to place this same note value there right after the second bar, I can just tap once with the on our loop length there. And what this does is it basically, you're thinking about it, it's locking the focus or the view of just that section. So notice how it'll play, but we only see it roll over this part when it gets to it. Does that make sense? So we see, oh, now we're just focused like literally on the push between bar 2 and here, the half of a bar through it. So now I could say, add that same note in there and create it over there. If I want it to scroll along with it, that's where I do that same thing with the drum rack, press and hold, press the last one, and now it'll follow along with it. right? And you could go crazy with this. You know what actually the best thing to do is to try to write your name with it. So you just make like a big L, and here's an E. This is gonna sound awesome. Done. All right. I don't have any fun doing this. I'm actually just forced to do this stuff. So I just undid all that. There's an undo button on the push, basically Command Z. So let's add a different note pitch on the last bar here. So I want to take it down and play a note below this octave. So I'm going to press octave down. I'm going to touch my last pad here, and I'm going to place this note just like that. So now let's see what we have. I don't like the placement of that. I'm going to move it over one. Perfect. So we're going to I'm going to show you guys how to use automation to add a little bit of reverb and delay to this chord sound, and then we're going to take another 1 minute water break and continue. So I've soloed up the chords here. Again, hit the mix button on the push. This is going to allow us to access all of our mixer functions. So mixer functions being track volume, right? So there's 4 buttons or 4 choices up here: volumes, pans, A sends, and B sends. So in the current mix mode, when it's set to volume, all of the subsequent encoders above adjust those track volumes, right? And now if I selected it to pans, now all of these 4 controls select pans. Here's a really cool function. If I mess it all up and I want to just default all the values, hit delete on the push and just tap those pads. Super crucial, because sometimes you just, noodling around and then you need to set it back to its default. So again, it's not quite there. There we go. Yes, it always sets it to the default. Same within Ableton. If you click on a parameter, say I wanted to set this back to the default, which would be 0, I just hit delete on the keyboard. Super handy function. Use it all the time. So again, we have access to these different mixer controls. So I have access to my sends. So we have the A send here. So we notice this now controls all of our send controls. So with our chords, let's see what it sounds like. Oh, I turned it way down. So let's go back to volume, turn this back up, press A send again. And now you could switch to the B send, which is a delay. For those of you who aren't familiar with sends and returns, we're not really going there in this demo, but basically it's a way of sending a copy from this track via this send control here over to our return tracks. Our return tracks typically have effects on them like reverbs and delays. The benefit to using return tracks is that we can send multiple sounds to the same effect. So here's what I mean. Right now we're selected on the B send, which is sending to this purple track over here that says delay, 16th note delay. So when I play, right, it becomes a delay for any of them, which is pretty sweet, right? You guys like delay? Yeah? Yeah! More! Do you guys ever mix a session down and then you go back and it's just like reverb and delay and you're just like, what? It sounded so good last night. You know what I mean. So let's see. Let's record that automation, because what I want to do is I want to use reverb for the first chord, and I want to use delay for the second one. So I want to have, but no, I'm going to show you the different mode. That was what brought this up. So again, 2 modes to this mix mode function here. One way, it's kind of a global effect, right? So I'm in this kind of global mix mode, right? I can access all of the same control across multiple tracks. If I tap mix again, I can access all of the mixer controls for one individual track that I'm selected. Does that make sense? So rather than, say, adjusting the volume for all of my tracks, I want to focus on one track in this different mode and select the volume. Oops, let's select on our chords here. The volume, the panning, and both sends. Pretty sweet, right? Yeah, super sweet. So again, accessing that is just hitting that mix button, and it's switching between the 2 modes. So we're going to record what is known as session view automation, right? We break it down. Session view is the view we're in. Automation means changing a parameter over time, right? So we just want to record these movements. I'm going to hit record and do my thing. I'm going to start with this one up so I don't have to jump in and get it. And let me adjust the display here for you. Right, and we can see now it's recorded that. Pretty cool, right?
If you're a music producer, subscribe to our channel and stay up to date on the latest Pyramind tutorial videos, track breakdowns, elite sessions, and more. Visit us at pyramind.com.